Really?
I think there's two. I saw
Really?
one yesterday, one black. I saw one black a few weeks ago, and one that was like calico.
Oh, the one I saw yesterday was a black red. Had black stripes to it.
I saw the calico one on the park somewhere.
All right, well, good. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is what our plan is today. Today we're going to start talking about plagiarism. There's a plagiarism tutorial assignment that you'll do for homework. We're gonna talk about documenting sources in MLA style and how to do that. We'll start discussing how to punctuate quotations, and we're going to introduce paraphrasing. So that's on our agenda today. We're doing this. There's a reason that we're moving to this first. We're getting ready to write our summary paragraphs, and we're going to do that in class, or start doing that in class on Thursday. When we write a summary, and when I ask you to write a summary paragraph, and all of your essays this semester will include a summary in there. It's important that you put your summary in your own words, and we put them in our own words. We paraphrase them, and we do that to avoid plagiarism. We don't want to plagiarize. So today, all of the stuff we're going to talk about is background to kind of get you ready for writing that summary paragraph. So we're going to go ahead into content. I want you to go down to Unit 2. We already talked about the revising and editing skills. Last week, we talked about formal and informal language and words that were often confused. Oops, sorry about that. And now we're ready to start talking about plagiarism. So we're going to go to folder 2.3 to start with, which is understanding plagiarism. And we're going to start off by watching a quick video that describes what plagiarism is.
I'm afraid some of you may have relaxed too much and didn't actually write your own papers. In fact, I believe a certain few of you took almost everything right off the internet.
Worry you might be him? Then you should definitely keep watching. Hi, I'm Jessica from Scribber, here to help you achieve your academic goals. Plagiarism is when you use someone else's words or ideas without crediting the source and pass it as your own. It's okay to use others' words and ideas, but you have to cite them.
Okay, so again, plagiarism is when in your writing you reference what somebody else's ideas and you don't give them credit. So all we're going to focus on today, and the main thing we're going to focus on, is how to give credit to the ideas that you want to use in your paper.
Committing plagiarism might save you time for a short while, but it comes at a high price. Depending on your institution's rules and the type of plagiarism, you might fail your course or even get suspended or expelled from your university. And no one wants that, right? Let's talk about 5 types of plagiarism you might encounter. Although they differ in severity, it's still not acceptable to commit any kind of plagiarism. And plagiarism checkers like Turnitin can detect all of them very easily. Verbatim plagiarism, also known as copy and paste plagiarism, as its name suggests, is when you directly copy and paste text from a source without citing the author. If you want to...
So the first kind of plagiarism is verbatim plagiarism. That's where you just go to the internet, you find something, you copy it, and you just put it over there, and you paste it right into your paper, and you don't give credit to it. And it's okay to use other ideas, but it's important that you give credit.
To use an author's exact words, you need to quote the original source by putting it in quotation marks and include an in-text citation. Check out our video on how to quote. Imagine a patchwork. You take different pieces of cloth and make it into a whole. That's exactly what patchwork or mosaic plagiarism is. You copy phrases and ideas from different sources and put them together to create a new text. In order to piece the different texts together nicely, this kind of plagiarism often includes some paraphrasing. It also requires a little more effort than the rest. So if you're already putting in the effort anyways, might as well completely avoid it. If you need a little help on paraphrasing, I got you. Click this video here.
So the second kind of plagiarism is patchwork plagiarism. That's not where you go and you take a whole chunk and you copy and paste it into your document, but instead you're taking a phrase here, a phrase here, a phrase here, and you're putting those phrases into your own work. And then again, you're not giving credit to those sources. You're trying to pass those ideas off as your own.
Paraphrasing plagiarism is the most common type of plagiarism, so pay extra attention. It's completely okay to paraphrase, but just because you rewrote it in your own words doesn't make the idea yours. So remember to give credit and cite the original source. Global
Let me go back here.
and cite.
Okay, so paraphrasing plagiarism is the fourth kind of plagiarism. And that is where you take what you've read, you put it in your own words, you put it in your paper or your writing, and then you don't give credit to the author. So you've put it in your own words. It's okay to paraphrase. It's okay to include paraphrases in your writing. It's just really important that you give credit and you cite your source if you're going to paraphrase.
The original source. Global plagiarism is when you take someone else's work entirely and use it as your own. That includes if you find a text online and submit it as your own, but also if you get someone to write your essay for you, like her.
But this is the exact same paper, word for word, that you can buy for $15 on termpaper.com. It even has the same title and footnotes.
Maybe they copied my paper.
This is one of the most serious type of plagiarism, as it involves deliberately and directly lying about the authorship of a work. So don't even think about it. You can also commit plagiarism by reusing the work you've previously submitted. This is called self-plagiarism.
Okay, so that the fourth kind of plagiarism that they talked about was global plagiarism. That's where you just take somebody else's paper, you remove their name, you put your name on it, and you pass that, you turn it in, you pass that off as your own. Again, that global plagiarism is the most severe. And then she's getting ready to talk to you about self-plagiarism. And self-plagiarism is when you take a paper or an assignment that you've written for another class maybe, and you just like, if you write a paper in here for English Composition 1, you go, you take another class in your major, you take that same paper that you wrote and you turn it in to another teacher for a different assignment. Like that's called self-plagiarism. You just want to be careful with that. There are, so in here, when, like if you were using something that you've written before, you wouldn't want to just turn it in here. Like I would want to see that you went through, you revised, you edited, you improved those things. Then it wouldn't be self-plagiarism. There are some professors on campus though, who are very, very strict about, making sure that you're not taking something from another class and then turning it in. They consider that, again, they can be a lot more strict about that type of plagiarism. So Blackboard has I think they've got there's a plagiarism checker in there. Google Assignments has a plagiarism checker. So there will be, just so you know, there will be some professors on campus who will go and look, turn your paper in through a plagiarism checker and turn it into a database to see if you've taken a paper from another class and you're using it someplace else. So you want to be careful with self-plagiarism.
So no turning in a paper you've already submitted for another class or recycling ideas developed from previous assignments. Just because it's your own work, it still counts as academic dishonesty because you've already gotten credit for the work. Woohoo! Now you're ready to move on to how to avoid plagiarism. Click this video here. But before you go, don't forget to drop a like and subs.
Didn't actually write your own papers.
Sorry, there we go. All right. So we've got an idea of the different kinds of plagiarism here. The most important thing that, and this is what we're going to focus on today, is how to avoid plagiarism. Oftentimes, that global plagiarism where, you know, you're copying, maybe taking a whole other student's paper and you're deleting the name and turning it in as your own, or the copy and paste kind of plagiarism, that doesn't always happen very often. It's more like accidental plagiarism that we see a lot of, where you're plagiarizing, but you're not even, it's an accident. You didn't even know necessarily that you were doing it. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is making sure we know how to avoid plagiarism so we can be intentional and avoid accidental plagiarism. So we're going to take a look at this next video, how to avoid plagiarism with 3 simple tricks.
Hi, I'm Jessica from Scribber, here to help you achieve your academic goals. Pretty relatable, huh? So you know what plagiarism is. You also know the different types of plagiarism as well as the consequences. Then buckle up. In this video, I'll show you how to avoid plagiarism in 3 easy steps. But just in case you don't, no worries. Check out this video first. I'll wait. Step 1. Keep track of your sources. Sometimes you just simply forget where an idea is from. We get it. We're only human. That's why keeping track of the sources you use along your research is a great way to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. We recommend.
Oh, let me go back here. So keeping track of your sources is something that is built into this class. So we're going in, we're picking out articles from the database. You're keeping track throughout the semester of the articles that you're using. Where this can get tricky is when, like, for example, you're going into composition 2 and maybe you're writing a long research paper and it's not maybe broken down into the same kind of steps that we do in here. If you're, you have to have 10 sources. When you start to have multiple, right now we're working with 1 source, so we know where those ideas came from. When you're working with multiple sources, that's where you want to make sure you're keeping good track of your notes. If there's a quote that you like or something you think you want to use in your paper, you're keeping track of where that quote came from, so that way you can give credit to the author in your writing.
Nothing slips through the cracks. We recommend compiling a list of citations as you are taking notes. This also allows you to easily go back and check where you found a phrase or idea to use in your paper. Step 2. Quote and paraphrase. When writing a paper, if you want to share an idea or a piece of information from a source, you must either paraphrase or quote the original text. To quote a text, enclose the quote in double quotation marks and include an in-text or footnote citation according to the citation style you're using.
So if we want to use an idea in our paper that belongs to somebody else, that's fine. One way we can avoid plagiarism is to use a direct quote. So you can pull the exact words from an article to use in your paper. You can put quotation marks around it. And if you put an in-text citation at the end, you've given credit to the person who said it. You're saying, like, I didn't think of this idea on my own. This is who it belongs to. This is where you can find it. And you've put quotes around exactly what you've kind of copied and pasted over into your essay. So quoting is one way. This in-text citation is actually an APA style in-text citation. We're going to talk about since we're writing everything in MLA format in here, we're going to talk about what MLA in-text citations look like today.
You're using. To paraphrase, you need to use your own words to explain an idea. You also need to include either an in-text citation or footnote citation.
So the other option, if you're not using a direct quote where you're putting quotation marks in there, you can take somebody else's ideas, put it in your own words, which is paraphrasing. And as long as you put an in-text citation at the end of where you've put it in your own words, it's okay to rephrase something and to put that in your writing or in your article with that in-text citation. What a summary paragraph is, which is what we're going to start writing in class on Thursday in here, is all paraphrases. So you're taking your paraphrase, everything in a summary is paraphrased. You don't use any direct quotes in a summary paragraph. Everything will be put in your own words, but then you also need to put an in-text citation.
Check out these 2 videos to become an expert on quoting and paraphrasing. Step 3. Use a plagiarism checker. Most universities use plagiarism checkers like Turnitin to detect plagiarism in student papers. If you twitch upon hearing that name, you know what I'm talking about. Using a plagiarism checker before turning in your paper will help you to detect accidental plagiarism and understand plagiarism better. This way, you can make sure it's plagiarism-free. Speaking of which, Scribner's plagiarism.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. As far as a plagiarism checker goes, in here, when you turn it into your Google assignment, there's a plagiarism checker tool in there, and I will put that in there. I don't use those plagiarism tools to go and like as a gotcha kind of thing. Like I'm not using it to police you or to police your writing. I'm not looking to go and fail people, but I use this. I have you use it because you can check your own paper using the plagiarism checker in Google Assignments, and it will give you a report so you can see what things would get flagged, and that way you can go back and correct things. So it can check your work for accidental plagiarism, things that maybe you're like, oh, I didn't realize that might be plagiarism. And you can then go back in and correct and look at your work that way. So we do use a plagiarism checker in the Google assignment tool. Only for the big essays. That's why you haven't seen that tool available to you yet. So we have 3 major essays in here. We have our summary response essay, we have an analysis essay, and then we have our researched argument essay. So those 3 essays that we complete in here you'll have access to a plagiarism checker in there. All right. So for homework, one thing I'm going to ask you to do is you are going to go into this tutorial, and this is part of our little Seagull handbook, and it's going to walk you through what plagiarism is, and you're going to answer some questions on there. This exercise is to help you understand plagiarism a little bit better. So you would click on to start this. There will be some information that you're going to read about why plagiarism matters, how to acknowledge your sources. You're going to know what counts as plagiarism. A lot of this the materials in this the text is things that we just watched in the video. It does talk about accidental plagiarism. And it's kind of a spectrum here where there's accidental plagiarism all the way to very intentional plagiarism. That's like where you purchase a paper online, you take that name off and you turn it in as your own. It continues down here. It talks about different types of plagiarism. Talks about paraphrasing, how you can avoid plagiarism, and then there are some questions that you can answer. Oops, let me go back up here. So it's going to, there are three sections: why plagiarism matters, what counts as plagiarism, how to avoid plagiarism, and then the very last section is something called, can you recognize plagiarism? And it's some questions that you'll answer based on those materials that you just read. Let me go back if I can go. I think because I put it in there as a student. So this assignment's going to count toward 25, or as it will count as 25 points. You will earn 90% of those 25 points just by completing the tutorial. Whether you get all the answers wrong or not, you'll get an A- on the assignment just for completing the tutorial. That last 10% of your grade is earned by those questions on that very last section. So it's going to take your score on that last section and use that to determine if you get the full credit, the full 25 points, or something a little less than that. You can't make less than a 90% on this assignment just by completing it. So this should be an easy assignment for you to complete, or easy points for you to do. So that's going to be one homework assignment. Does anybody have questions about that 2.3 assignment? Okay. We're going to go into the 2.4 assignment. And in the videos that we watched, she talked to us about ways that we can make sure that we don't commit plagiarism. And one of those is by citing your sources and using direct quotes. So we're going to open up this folder 2.4 and 2.5. The very first thing we want to look at in this folder is a graphic that tells you how to cite textual evidence in MLA format. So when you're using a direct quote, now we're not using direct quotes in our summary paragraphs that we're going to write on Thursday. We're going to be paraphrasing, but when you do use a direct quote, you're going to put quotation marks at the beginning. You're going to copy the words from the text word for word. You'll put quotation marks after the phrase that you're copying. You put parentheses, and this is for MLA format. You have to put an in-text citation. That's what this piece is right here. It's the parentheses, the author's last name, a page number if applicable, like if you're using a book and you're looking at all the pages. For online work, like some of our articles don't necessarily have page numbers that we're looking at, you would just put the author's last name without a page number in parentheses there. And then you put your period outside the parentheses. And this is a way that you can tag those words, and that idea is saying, this did not belong to me, but this is who it belongs to. And you can go and find that evidence someplace else. All right, so we're going to look at this quick video about avoiding plagiarism with citations and quotes.
We don't always think about the little rules that govern our behavior.
Okay, hold on just a minute. I was thinking I might.
But we can usually tell if something about an interaction is off. For instance, imagine there's a cafe and I see the barista wearing a Star Wars pin. I recognize the reference, so I say, "May the Force be with you." She'd think I was acting strange if I followed up with, "That's a quote from George Lucas used in the well-known Star Wars series." When we talk about ideas and phrases that someone else said first, we use different ways of acknowledging that we didn't come up with them ourselves. Sometimes the reference only requires a quick mention, and other times we share a lot of information to give due credit. In writing, there's a wide variety of ways to share the stage with another writer, using their words or ideas, but also making your own contributions. We'll talk about how to work with others' words today in Study Hall Composition, presented by Arizona State University and Crash Course. I'm Yamna Sami, and let's get started. Depending on our experiences in school or work, we might be really afraid of plagiarism, the act of using someone else's ideas or words without giving them appropriate credit. In school and professional settings, plagiarism is considered a major problem. When people suspect you've taken someone else's ideas or words and claimed them as your own, they have a hard time trusting you in the future. That's because they may consider plagiarism cheating, or even a kind of identity theft. Ideas are, in some ways, more precious than property. You could face consequences like failed assignments or distrust in your workplace. But we know that the rules and expectations for how to acknowledge sources can feel overwhelming. We'll explore some tools to make sure you're crediting your sources, even if the standards are complex. But before we talk in depth about how to avoid plagiarism, let's focus on how we actually want to treat other people's words in our writing. We want to give them credit and still do interesting work where we add to the conversations being had. To start, we want to avoid setting other people's ideas up as being undeniable evidence of how right we are, or how wrong they are. There's a common misconception that source material is just there to confirm what we've already said, or just for us to tear down. Rather, we want to explain and then respond to the people who we include in our work. Consider your writing as one statement in a much larger conversation. You're in a dialogue with the people whose words and ideas you include in your project. The conversation will continue after your particular writing project too. This is because knowledge grows incrementally, and conversations within and between pieces of writing slowly create new knowledge over time. It can be uncomfortable to realize that nothing is really ever settled. There's always the possibility of new information. But this lets us focus on interesting, complex ideas rather than trying to shut down all debate forever. We use other people's words and ideas in a few different ways. As writers, we can think of them as quotation, paraphrase, and explanation. Quotation is when we represent the exact words of others, because their phrasing is brief and clear or contains clever insight we want to share with our readers. This is when we have those double quotation marks. Don't miss a single word, and cite the person who made the statement. Paraphrasing is not word-for-word quotation, but it is a representation of someone else's ideas. It's when we rewrite someone else's work in our own words, either to save space or to put our own unique spin on it. If I want to quickly compare 3 sources in a single sentence, I'll paraphrase their main points rather than shoving 3 quotations into a clunky, page-long sentence. We still include a citation when we paraphrase. Even though we rewrite the idea to make it quicker and clearer for our work, we still want to give credit to the original thinker or writer. We also want to let our readers know where they can find more on that topic, which is another major goal of citing our sources. Citations, by the way, are accepted ways of expressing where other people's words or ideas came from, and they can include information like the person's name, their book, article, or chapter title, and even the page of the book where they came from. Our citation depends on the context in which we write. On Twitter, for instance, it might be enough to include the handle of the person you're quoting. But in a scientific research report, you may have to include a lot more information because that's the norm for citing in that context. Lastly, explanation is where you further shed light on either your own ideas or the ideas of someone else. It's often used in combination with paraphrasing and quotation because it helps your reader continue to process the deeper meanings from the quotes or paraphrases. A quotation without any kind of explanation afterward is called a drop quote. The drop refers to the quote just parachuting into the text, dropping in without clear reasons for being there. I think about that sandwich a lot. I just said something totally irrelevant in the middle of this video. As it turns out, it's a quotation from the 2015 season of the Great British Baking Show But you wouldn't know because I didn't tell you anything about it, and I didn't explain it afterward. Well, now I did, but you know what I mean. Perhaps you've referenced a quote from a book or TV show to your friends, only to get blank stares that signaled they need more context. Just because the quote seemed useful to me doesn't mean my audience will automatically get it. The bad news is that we have to figure out a way to avoid drop quotes, because they confuse our readers. The good news is that engaging deeply with every quote will make our writing much stronger, while also helping us avoid plagiarism. Let's go a little.
Okay, I'm going to stop there because we'll come back and watch more of that later in the unit. But we've got she gives some background there on why it's important to include citations and quotes. And we're going to look at one more video about in-text and parenthetical citations.
Hi, I'm Matt. When you use a quote in an academic paper or anywhere in your writing, you are using another creator's work to support your own in some way. This is great. However, you must let the reader know that the words you are quoting are from another work that is not your own. In MLA, this is done in the text with a narrative or parenthetical citation, and a full reference in the works cited page. A parenthetical citation is used when the author is not named in the sentence.
Okay, so in-text citations are also, they can also be known as these parenthetical citations, which means you're putting in parentheses within the text a tag that tells you where or who said that, or where that idea originated from, whoever said
Instead, the author's name is placed in parentheses after the sentence, along with the page number of the cited text where the quote appears. In this example, King's name is not included in the sentence itself, so his name is in parentheses after the sentence, with 11 for the page number where the quote can be found in the original text.
Okay, so when you use a parenthetical citation, you're using that when that last name in maybe your quote or your paraphrase, when the last name of the author does not appear in the sentence. You have to put in parentheses at the end a tag that tells you that this idea belongs to King. And if you have a page number, you put which page number that idea came from.
Think of the parenthetical citation as a kind of name tag that leads the reader to the correct reference in the works cited page. For every source that is cited using an in-text citation, there is a corresponding full reference. This allows readers to track down the original source if they want to follow your research. The full reference is on the works cited page and will generally include the author's first and last name, the title of the article in quotation marks, the title of the journal in italics, the volume and issue number, the date the journal was published, and the URL where the article was found, if it's an author.
Okay, so if you use an in-text citation, you have to have a works cited page at the end that gives the full citation reference on that works cited page. And this is an example of what one of those looks like.
Online article. When a source has two authors, place both authors' last name in the body of your work. The last names do not need to be listed in alphabetical order. Instead, follow the same order as shown on the source. In a parenthetical citation, separate the last two names with the word "and." After both authors' names, add a space and the page number the original quote or information is found on.
So if your article has two authors, you put both of their last names in the parentheses along with a page number if that's applicable.
Some works are written by 3 or more authors. However, if you tried to include all of these names in your citations, it would be too distracting to the reader. In the parenthetical citation, instead of including all last names, only include the last name of the first individual shown on the source, followed by the Latin phrase "et al." Add the page number after "et al."
Okay, so if you have 3 or more authors, you only put the very first, the name of the very first author that's listed there, and then this Latin phrase et al. Et is Latin for the word and all means all people, others. So this is saying this article was written by Tam and other authors. So and after that et al, you would want to have a period after the all there.
Many digital images, films and videos, encyclopedia articles, dictionary entries, web pages, and more do not have author names listed. If the source you're attempting to cite does not have an author's name listed, use the title in the parenthetical citation instead. If the full reference has the title within quotation marks, include these quotation marks in the in-text citation. If the title is written in italics in the full reference, use italics in the in-text citation as well. This first example is from a poem titled The Last Time. The poem's author is unknown. The second example is from the movie The Englishman Who Went Up a Hill But Came Down a Mountain.
So if there is no author, then you put the title in that parentheses.
Notice the shortened title. This allows the reader to spend more time focusing on the content of your project rather than the sources. If you choose to shorten the title, make sure the first word in the full citation is also the first word used in the parenthetical citation. The abbreviated title should begin with the word by which the title is alphabetized. Omit any articles that start a title like a, an, and the.
Okay. Let me see here. Is this one we don't need? Okay, here. This is the next piece we want to look at.
When a source has no page numbers, as is often the case with long web page articles or ebooks, do not include any page number information in the body of the project. Do not estimate or invent your own page numbering system for the source.
So if there are no page numbers, which in most of our articles there will not be, you don't put any kind of page number. You would just put the author's name in the parentheses.
If you use an author's work in one section of your project, and the next piece of information included is by the same author, then you don't need to share that both items are from the same author. Instead, you can include the last name of the author in the first use, and in the second usage, only use the page number. Here's an example of how to cite the same source multiple times. The reader can assume that the information in the second quote is from the same article as the first quote. If, in between the two quotes, a different source is included, Tong and Moran's names would need to be added again in the last quote citation. That's the long and short of how you cite parenthetical citations in MLA.
Okay. All right. So you are going to do some practice here for homework on documenting sources in MLA style. There are 2 inquisitive exercises that you're going to work on for homework. That is going to walk you through what MLA style is. It's going to direct you to those pages in the handbook on MLA style, coming up with a works cited page and so forth. For example, here, click on the elements of this works cited entry in a print reference work that would also appear in the works cited entry for the online version of the same work. So the title, I'm sure, would be also in a, that appears in an online work as well. The version, the edition number would be in there. We've got publishers also appear in the online work. Dates would appear in an online work as well. and location. An online version wouldn't have page numbers. If this is the name of the document, that would also go in there too. So you'll go through and answer some questions here about MLA citations. You're also going to do a section on punctuating quotations. So this is going to direct you to the part of the ebook where it says, like, where do you put your quotes? Where do you have periods? Just like we looked at that chart on there, the quotation marks go around the words, then there's a space, and then you have a parentheses, you have the author's last name and a page number within parentheses. This exercise is going to help you with punctuating those quotations, putting those quotations and periods and so forth in the right place. Are there questions about the two exercises you're going to do to practice citations and quotes? Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't want to get started with this. We're going to do 2.6 on Thursday in here. To the announcements. So we'll do these two items Thursday. Strike through those. All right, so you've got three homework assignments here to work on. And I'm going to give you, we've got about 20 minutes here left in class. I want to give you some time to start those assignments. I do want to point out that I did bump back that Unit 2 due date right now. The Unit 2 due date, I've moved all of those due dates back to October 1st. So we're going to be looking at October 1st as when we finish Unit 2. We are completely on track for finishing all of the work in the course. Typically what we do in the first 8 weeks of the class, we work on Unit 1 and Unit 2. So we write one essay out of our 3. We write one before midterm. Then there's midterm. And then the last 8 weeks of the course, we write our analysis essay, and then we write our argumentative essay there at the end. What we're doing right now, these assignments that we're working on are all building the foundation for you to be able to write these as essay assignments. So when we get into that second part of the semester, there are going to be fewer of these kind of assignments with like inquisitive and whatnot. It's going to be more essay writing in the second half of the course. So we're working on getting those foundational skills right now to help you in the second half of the course. It'll be more essay writing based. Questions?
It's a good thing that I'm super excited for season 2.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to let you work right now. I want you to take some time. I want you to work on assignment 2.3, 2.4, and 2.5.